On April 1st, the skies over Iran shook in a way they never had before. Not from a storm. Not from an earthquake. From the United States Air Force. For the first time since Operation Epic Fury began, B-52 Stratofortress bombers flew overland missions directly into Iranian airspace. News. And when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs stepped to the podium and confirmed it, the world understood this was no longer a surgical campaign. This was annihilation, delivered at scale. But to understand what happened on April 1st, you have to start at the beginning, somewhere over the United Kingdom, at an airfield that has launched some of the most consequential missions in modern history. 3 B-52H Stratofortress bombers touched down at Royal Air Force Fairford on March 9, days before. B-1B Lancers had already arrived. By March 9, a total of 11 U.S. strategic bombers were parked on British soil. Defense Industry Europe. This base, with one of the longest flight lines in Europe, is one of the few installations on the continent capable of hosting the full bomber fleet, B-1s, B-2s, and B-52s. Air and Space Forces Magazine. From Fairford to central Iran is roughly 3,000 miles. The round trip exceeds 6,000. And yet these aircraft didn't hesitate. The B-52H carries nearly 48,000 gallons of fuel, enough for a combat range of around 8,800 miles when flying unloaded. But on April 1st, they were not flying unloaded. They were carrying up to 70,000 pounds of ordnance per aircraft, and that weight burns fuel fast. KC-135 Stratotanker aircraft were pre-positioned along the route, meeting the bombers mid-air, topping off their tanks, and sending them forward without breaking stride. The B-52s assigned to April 1's mission had 21 targets, 20 weapons production facilities and 1 military research and development complex. These weren't sheds or warehouses. Iranian weapons factories are heavily reinforced industrial complexes, many partially buried underground, surrounded by blast walls, built to survive conventional bombardment. To crack them open, the B-52s carried GBU-31 Joint Direct Attack munitions, 2,000-pound GPS-guided bombs engineered to punch through reinforced concrete and detonate inside the structure. One bomb doesn't just damage a roof. It drives through upper floors, reaches the production level, and detonates from the inside, collapsing walls, destroying machinery, and obliterating whatever was being built there. For deeper targets, underground bunkers where Iran stockpiled assembled missiles and warheads, the load shifted to GBU-28 laser-guided penetrators. These 5,000-pound weapons are machined from dense steel alloys specifically to drill through up to 22 feet of concrete or 150 feet of packed earth before detonating. Deep enough to reach bunkers 2 or 3 levels underground. And for the most fortified sites of all? B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, also flying from Fairford, carried the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, a weapon that weighs 30,000 pounds, stretches over 20 feet long, and can punch through 200 feet of earth or 60 feet of reinforced concrete. It uses a smart fuse that senses when it has passed through empty voids inside a structure, then delays detonation until it reaches the most critical point. The ground above barely moves. Everything below is destroyed. The bombers didn't fly alone into a contested sky. They flew into a sky that had already been broken. The US and Israeli militaries struck over 2,000 Iranian targets with 2,000 munitions in the first 100 hours of the air war, including air defenses, ballistic missile launchers, and drone infrastructure. Flight Global. F divided by a -18E Super Hornets launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea. F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters launched from the USS Tripoli, an amphibious assault ship carrying approximately 3,500 sailors and Marines, along with around 20 F-35Bs from VMFA-121, the Green Knights. The Lincoln's air wing included Super Hornets, F-35CS, and EA-18G Growler electronic warfare jets. The Growlers went first, jamming Iranian radar frequencies, blinding command networks, and filling enemy screens with ghost signals. The F-35s followed, invisible to what was left of Iran's defenses, taking out any remaining radar installations or missile batteries still daring to operate. By the time the Super Hornets arrived, the path was already clear. And by the time the B-52s reached their targets, the introduction of non-stealth bombers flying with relative impunity confirmed what military analysts had suspected: the U.S. had established local air superiority over Iran. Defense today. On the Lincoln, catapults were firing a Super Hornet every 30 to 60 seconds at peak tempo. One jet gone, the next already rolling into position. On the Tripoli, F-35Bs rolled forward and lifted off under their own engine thrust, no catapult required. The cycle never stopped. Iran's air defense network was built on a foundation of decades-old Soviet technology. The S-200 long-range system, the backbone of Iran's strategic defense, relies on massive fixed launchers and slow, mechanically scanning radars that are easy to locate and hard to move. Iran had domestically produced systems like the Bavar 373, and 4 batteries of Russian S-300 PMU-2 systems delivered in 2016. 4 batteries. For a country larger than Alaska. The rest was a patchwork: aging American Hawk missiles left over from before the 1979 revolution, short-range Russian Tor M1 systems, and domestically built radars of inconsistent quality. But the deeper problem wasn't just the equipment. It was the architecture. Iran's batteries operated in near isolation. They lacked the unified command network needed to share radar data in real time, coordinate engagements, and hand off targets as aircraft moved between sectors. Army recognition: American and Israeli electronic warfare aircraft exploited every gap, jamming inter-battery communications, spoofing radar returns, and flooding the system with false contacts. By the time U.S. forces had struck over 6,000 targets and destroyed more than 90 Iranian vessels, the air campaign had achieved a level of aerial dominance that left Tehran with almost no ability to contest its own skies. Flight Global. The B-52s flew their bomb runs undisturbed. Bays opened. Ordnance released. They turned for home. Not a single bomber was lost. While the bombers worked at altitude, the fight at the Strait of Hormuz was happening at wave height. AH-64 Apache attack helicopters flew low over the water, hunting what remained of Iran's naval threat: fast attack boats armed with anti-ship missiles, coastal launch sites hidden along the shoreline, and Shahid drone launch platforms still sending unmanned aircraft toward commercial shipping and U.S. warships. The U.S. military deployed A-10 Thunderbolts and AH-64E Apache helicopters specifically to strike fast-attack watercraft and intercept drones in the strategically vital strait. Flight Global. The Apache's AGM-114 Hellfire missiles locked onto patrol boats and coastal launchers from kilometers away. Its Hydra 70 unguided rockets saturated soft targets, troops in the open, unarmored vehicles, drone launch equipment. And for anything that got close, the M230 chain gun, a 30mm automatic cannon mounted under the nose, firing 625 rounds per minute, settled the matter instantly. In total, 17 Iranian ships were destroyed, including Tehran's only operational submarine. Flight Global. What this means: U.S. forces have now conducted more than 11,000 strikes against targets in Iran since Operation Epic Fury began. Why is the B-52's deployment overland isn't just a tactical milestone, it is a message. Unlike fighters operating from regional bases, the B-52 represents the United States' ability to project overwhelming strike power across intercontinental distances. Its presence in active operations signals that commanders are prepared to escalate the scale and tempo of strikes if required. Army recognition. Iran built its military doctrine around the idea that it could absorb punishment and outlast American resolve. April 1 answered that theory. When an aircraft designed in the 1950s, loaded to its maximum bomb weight, can fly from England, cross into Iranian airspace completely unopposed, release its payload, and fly home without a scratch, that isn't just a military operation. That is the complete collapse of a nation's ability to defend itself. The B-52 didn't just carry bombs over Iran on April 1. It carried a verdict.